So let's move to the second point, and that's just the significant and structural divides that we're increasingly seeing inside of democracies, and of course mostly in the world's most powerful democracy, the United States. Talk about why this is one of the factors that you consider such a big driver for a changing global order.
Well, it started with the populism that became more apparent when Donald Trump first came in. Populism didn't exist much in the developed world and didn't exist in the U.S. And I needed to study it. Populism of the left and populism of the right. And what I meant is, or what I mean by populism is the person of the left or the right, the leader, who will fight for that group in a fight against the other group. So history has shown that populism of the populists of the left and populists of the right then begin to gain power under this set of circumstances when there's a large wealth gap and there's the financial part. So it became very relevant to me because it changed how the wealth pie was being shifted. So, for example, when Donald Trump came in, tax changes had a big impact on financial markets, and as a result, you could see it, reverberate, and you could also see what was happening between states start to change. So I needed to study that conflict, and I plotted it, both the wealth gaps, the income gaps, and I plotted the political gaps, and all of those were the greatest since the 1930 to 45 period. In fact, greater than that period, going back to 1900. And we could see it every day. What was happening on January 6th was not a surprise in that this readers of history would see this pattern happen. And as we look forward, we can see that threat to democracy and the inclination to have a type of civil war occurring. For example, it's entirely possible that neither party will accept losing on the presidential elections in
24.
So if that's amazing, right? Because then you lose rule of law, you lose the Constitution as being, you move to a phase where there is power, that it is a matter of power and a matter of fighting to win at all costs.
Ray, when you look at the last 2 years of pandemic and the fact that, labor rates, wages have gone up significantly as a response, people talk about the Great Resignation. There's been a significant amount of money that's gone towards redistribution and the rest. Would you say, I understand that undermines your first issue of indebtedness, but on the second point, do you think this is just a blip, or does it have the potential to be a more structural change that could actually improve the levels of inequality and disenfranchisement that you're describing?
No, they go together. That's right. In other words, I do believe that the opportunity gaps, the education gaps, it's part of this cycle. Capitalism in its cycles creates great resource allocation, empowers people who don't have money. They get the money as they're good investments and so on. And it raises incomes, raises living standards, and it raises wealth gaps. And when it raises the wealth gap, because it's self-perpetuating, because people who earn more money, can educate their children better and so on, and there are education gaps and so on, naturally those gaps widen and occur, and they are a problem. And so I understand those problems. I can see those problems. So the need to build infrastructure, the need to build better education and greater equality in education has to, by the way, also accompany greater productivity if you want to raise living standards.